Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Colorblind Magazine. I'm Leah Olajide. So, obviously, I don't have a guest today, so I'm basically having a conversation with myself and with you, the audience. But I wanted to talk about a very important topic, which is the 1619 Project. So, let's get started. So basically, I need to start off by saying that every time I think that I personally know or have, I guess you could say, a good grasp on African American history, something comes along that vividly reminds me that I really don't know much at all and that there's always something new to learn. And that's exactly what happened with the 1619 project. So this project was debuted last year in August 2019 by the New York Times, and it's actually a magazine. And what it is the project discusses the 400 years of slavery and how slavery, not of slavery, but the 400th anniversary of when slavery started, which is to believe to have been in August 1619. So last year in August would have brought us to 400 years. Let me just read to you what it says on the cover of the magazine. In August of 1619, a ship appeared on this horizon near Point Comfort, a coastal port in the British colony of Virginia. It carried more than 20 enslaved Africans who were sold to the colonists. America was not yet America, but this was the moment it began. No aspect of the country that would be formed here has been untouched by the 250 years of slavery that followed. On the 400th anniversary of this fateful moment, it is finally time to tell our story truthfully. So that's what you see on the cover, the bottom part of the cover of the New York Times Magazine, the special issue of the 1619 Project. As you'll see on the screen, Nikole Hannah-Jones is really the mastermind behind this entire project. She is a journalist and she studied, obviously, journalism, but she also studied history. And that's apparent because of how those two professions or areas of study are brought together for this project. You'll see also pictures of other individuals. That's what it looks like on the cover or on the inside page of the 1619 Project, the magazine issue. It shows other contributors to the project who talked about slavery and just African American history from a variety of viewpoints, whether it was music, art, dance, the political system, how African Americans are incarcerated, so many different aspects of our history as African Americans and how it relates to contemporary issues. I'll never forget, I rushed out the day that this came out to get a copy of this publication because I knew it was something that I needed to have in my collection and something that I wanted to read as well as share with others. So let's talk about some of the goals and objectives of the 1619 Project and the social media campaign. So a lot of the, or two of the, well, one of the textbooks that we're reading in my new media and communication class by Freeberg, it mentioned that it's so important to have goals and objectives when establishing a social media plan. But as important as that is, it can also be one of the most challenging things to do. But what were some of the goals and objectives of the 1619 Project and its campaign? Well, obviously, it was to bring awareness to the truth of when slavery actually began in the United States. Another goal was to make sure that the project found its way creatively into schools as well as nonprofits. And I'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of how the New York Times went about incorporating or bringing this goal to fruition. Another or two objectives that are kind of interrelated is that this project, they wanted to reach a higher amount of customers as well as readers. And if they were able, if the Times was able to do that, then naturally that will follow on to the next objective, which was to improve the volume of sales. Now, a little bit of research. So, the New York Times has as its motto, all the news that's fit to print. That's what their motto is. That's what they live by. And this really does align well with the creation of a social media campaign when it comes to the aspect of storytelling. And really, when we think about it, at the heart of it, the 1619 Project is a historical story that affects contemporary issues. Let me say that again. It's a historical story that affects contemporary issues. So the New York Times knew this. They were very well aware of this. And that's how they were able to effectively use storytelling to convey this message to readers. And one way they were able to do this was by allowing users or readers to be a part of the experience. That's part of it. They did this, as you'll see in a few slides later, by means of 1619 Project merchandise. They did this by having the project online via an extremely interactive website. They also did this by means of creating a curriculum that teachers and educators and professors and even camp leaders, anybody who wanted to use it really could download this curriculum and use it to teach others and to have conversations with others about this most important topic. Another aspect that the Times really gave attention to was this was an opportunity for them to showcase their values. And what do I mean by this? Well, a prior example is the New York Times decided that they were going to publish obituaries of lesser known or, less prominent African Americans in history. Why did they decide to do this? Because they saw that this was an opportunity to enhance or strengthen their motto, all the news that's fit to print. And they knew that these individuals that had not gotten, I guess you could say, a proper recognition before they passed or when they passed, it was time to honor those individuals. And so they did. They printed obituaries. One such person was my shero, Ida B. Wells Barnett, whose obituary they decided to print, which had not been printed originally. So with that thought in mind, or that example in mind, it can kind of be easy to see that this project, the 1619 Project, likely fell into that same category. The New York Times wanted to be the premier publication or the first publication that redefined the understanding of slavery and its start in America. They understood the importance of this opportunity to showcase their values. And the New York Times values the truth. The truth is worth it. The truth can change how we see the world. And that's what they did. They also did this by means of, as you see on this slide, they created a short intro video, and they used singer actress Janelle Monáe, who's pictured here, to be the narrator for this particular video. And that was interesting because she's well known to a lot of individuals, and a lot of people connect with her too. So again, using your audience, or allowing users to be part of that experience was another way that the New York Times did this. Nicole Hannah-Jones even mentioned in one of her interviews with Trevor Noah that African Americans often hear or have been told to just get over slavery. You know, it happened so long ago, just get over it. Well, Nicole said, and I quote, nobody wants to get over slavery as much as African Americans. But she also continued on by saying that this project was really written to reframe the story that all of us have been told, no matter what our race is. And it's really about the ongoing legacy of slavery, which was so foundational to America and its systems that we're still seeing the effects of that right now. So let's talk a little bit about the campaign strategy as well as the audience. So obviously there was the creation of the hashtag 1619 project, which went crazy on social media when this launched last year in August. Nicole Hannah-Jones also appeared everywhere on national news. She did various interviews with people on radio shows. She was everywhere talking about and promoting this most important project. The project itself also was presented in a variety of ways. So you had the print edition, which, like I mentioned, I had my copy. There was also the digital edition online, which allowed, again, for users to put themselves in the story, so to speak. And then there was also the audio publication. The New York Times ended up creating a 1619 Project podcast for this special series. There was also various community discussions that took place within different cities and states, where they spoke about. Nicole Hannah-Jones appeared along with other contributors to the magazine, and they had discussions about the 1619 Project, the reasoning or thinking behind how each of them wrote their particular piece for the project. In one of the later slides, I'll even show, one of those events that I attended. So when it comes to audiences, once again, if I refer to some of the readings that we've had in my class, there's a few types of audiences. So, but before I discuss that, I just want to throw out this one fact that in 2016, the New York Times had 9.32 million daily readers. And in a report released by Pew Research, 32% of those who regularly read the New York Times are less than the age of 30. So that's a good statistic or fact to keep in mind. But in relation to the 1619 Project and its audience, the primary audience that the Times wanted to reach obviously was minorities, particularly African Americans, whether they were older, middle-aged, young, school-aged children. The Times also paid special attention to educators, again, whether they specifically taught certain subjects like history, social studies, communication, journalism. A secondary audience would include those of the majority, those who are avid readers of the Times, no matter what that person's race is. And then additionally, there are what's referred to as emerging audiences. And this would include individuals who interact and engage often with the Times, whether it's, by picking up an actual copy or following them on social media. This could include high-end influencers, celebrities, those known in the pop culture or sports world. And so really tapping into those individuals would in turn secure the attention of the followers of those individuals and bring more awareness to this project and this campaign. Of course, you have to include opponents within the audience, right? Well, that would include rival publications of the New York Times. The first one that came to mind was the Washington Post, which has kind of been a rival publication of the Times. There's also, there were also historians who opposed the writings and the work of the creator of this project, Nikole Hannah-Jones, where they denied, many of the things that she had researched and found in history in terms of this date or, August 1619. So there was some opposition as well from that audience of individuals who just, for a variety of reasons, did not want the project to do well or for people to know much about it. But nevertheless, how did this project play out on social media? Well, as time drew closer to the middle of August in 2019, hashtag 1619 or hashtag 1619 project was again appearing everywhere on social media. The New York Times magazine team carefully planned for awareness of this project to peak right around the time of that 400th anniversary of when the first ship carrying Africans arrived in the state of Virginia. And as you see on this slide, there are many pages dedicated to this project on popular social media platforms. The one to the far left is on Instagram from hashtag 1619 project. The one in the very center was a page created for the 1619 podcast. Then we also see photos of Nikole Hannah-Jones appearing with Trevor Noah discussing the project. Even certain celebrities such as filmmaker Spike Lee began wearing 1619 apparel. On the Instagram page of tennis star Serena Williams, she posted a picture of the actual magazine the weekend that it was released, encouraging people to go out, purchase it, and read it. And then also on this slide was a announcement from former Free Press journalist Rochelle Riley, who was reminding people about the discussion, the community discussion that was held about the 1619 project at the Charles H. Wright Museum. And I actually was able to attend that event and hear the conversation from Rochelle, who kind of served as the moderator, and also to understand, Nikole Hannah-Jones, her perspective, why she chose to do this project. And then we also heard a little bit from some of the contributors who came to town to discuss their work and contribution to the project. So how was this campaign evaluated and what were the results? Well, one of the best ways to determine if a campaign was successful is to, again, kind of revert back to your goals, but to think along the lines of the SMART theory. And some aspects of SMART have already been touched on throughout this video or presentation. But I want to take a minute to talk about how we could determine how to measure the success of this project. Or in other words, was this project meaningful? Was it motivating? And I think, in my humble opinion, I think that can easily be seen. To date, the date that I'm filming this video, there are 30.8 thousand posts about the 1619 project on Instagram. Furthermore, Nikole Hannah-Jones, again, the creator of the project, received the coveted Pulitzer Prize for her work on this project. y'all know they do not just throw Pulitzer Prizes around for no reason. So she won this prize for her work. And then again, certain communities, we see the impact, the meaningful impact that it had on certain communities that decided to bring the project even closer to home. As you see on the slide here, the Ann Arbor District Library created an exhibit of the New York Times 1619 project in early March of 2020, this year. So this exhibit was created nearly 7 months after the project was initially launched. So clearly, this shows the relevancy and the timeliness of this project as well. And speaking of time, the revealing of the project was definitely time sensitive. You know, they were building momentum for this project in late August or late July, excuse me, early August. But the project itself, I don't think you can put a date on it. I think the project itself is very timeless because it can be revisited during obvious times of the year, such as Black History Month. But it's also becoming a topic that people are referring to or going back to, especially amidst the current protests that are taking place around the world and this country. And also, the video that I'm filming right now is being filmed just a few days prior to Juneteenth or June 19th, which is the celebration of the day that slavery officially ended in America, June 19th, 1865. Juneteenth is a major celebration. And so I'm pretty sure that the juxtaposition of when slavery first started to the day or the celebration that it officially was over will relate to one another because of the 1619 project, and people will no doubt refer back to that project. So I think that and again, this is just, you know, kind of a personal opinion, but learning about African American history and how it relates to present triumphs and present challenges, it really has no end. It really doesn't. You can set a date in terms of timeliness according to the SMART goals, but it really doesn't have an end in this case. And I definitely think that the 1619 project is proof of this. So if you are someone who has not checked out the 1619 project, please consider doing so. It's a wonderful project by the New York Times, and it really gives a different aspect or viewpoint on things. Thanks so much. Hope you all enjoyed this video.